Hello and welcome to CSU News. I'm your anchor, Zach Abbiati. Our top story for tonight. He's been voted best hair and most likely to crush a student's spirits 12 years running. Adam Schwalm is once again putting on the Christmas concert for Clark Summit University. Our own Davis Moore was on scene asking him a couple questions.
Do you find that the pressure of the studio, the audience, does that add to the quality of the performance? Does it sound better in practice? Does it sound better in the actual performance?
Well, it's not that I don't know whether it will be good or bad. I mean, we generally, if it was going to be bad, we'd cut a piece, right? But generally going into it, there are little moments like, will they really rise to this occasion in the way that I know they can? Sort of, I know their maximum potential. I've heard it at times. We go for that. And so the question really is, will they be at max potential for this? And so that kind of gets into your question. And that is, you don't really know if it will be like, wow, or if it'll be like, hey, that's pretty good, or like, ooh, we missed that entrance, that was not good. Because nerves can go either way. You know, when you get in front of an audience, you either become very nervous and shut down, or some people get really excited and thrive on that. I've heard a lot of conductors, pianists sort of talk about how when they're in front of people, it's their moment to do the best that they possibly can. Other people respond to that by, like I said, shutting down, and they don't know how to deal with that. They get nervous, you start to shake. So it's hard to know how kids in a group will respond to that, but generally the bigger the group, the less that happens. So typically, to answer your question, I find that doing something in front of people as a choir makes it better, because singers, choristers are more on their game, because those nerves have kind of tightened you up and heightened you to watching the conductor and thinking about the music.
Is there a particular song you're looking forward to the most for an audience to hear?
I don't think so. I mean, I have my favorites, but the cool thing about music is what I love and what I appreciate, what kind of gives you the goosebumps, doesn't do that for everyone. It's something different. And so that's really neat for me to actually, sometimes people will come up afterwards and say, I loved this piece, this particular piece really connected with me, which I find interesting because sometimes I'm like, well, that was one of like my bottom 3 favorites. And sometimes the one that I think is amazing is not the one that people connect with, and sometimes it is. For me personally, each piece has its moments. I mean, I know it's a cliche answer, but I don't think I could give a favorite.
Okay, no problem with that. Well, thank you so much for meeting us. We're looking forward to hearing the concert. I know I'll be there. Many of us will be. We're looking forward to it. Thank you for meeting with us today.
You're welcome.
In other news, if eyebrows could kill, this man would be wanted for murder. Jonathan Strayer has been chosen to direct CSU's upcoming production of Peter and the Starcatcher. Joanna was on scene earlier with him asking a couple questions. Joanna?
Hello, I'm here with Jonathan Strayer at Clark Summit University on the stage in the Phelps Center. Jonathan, there seems to be a buzz on the campus about this new upcoming production, Peter and the Starcatcher. How do you think this will affect the auditions next week?
I'm really excited about this. I think the buzz that's on campus is going to bring a lot of people out. I've heard that there's a good number of people who may not normally audition for productions coming out for this one. I think the pirate theme helps, the idea that it has something to do with Peter and the Pan. Peter and the Starcatcher. I think the idea that it has to do with Peter Pan really helps with that. And so people are drawing off of this idea that it's a familiar story, but it's also a fun, piratey story that they can really get into. Mm-hmm. So I think we'll have some good auditions. I'm expecting quite a few people to come out.
That's very cool. Now, Peter and the Starcatcher is such a big show for a small school to undertake. Does this make you nervous?
You know what? Every show, I think there's a healthy amount of nervousness for every show that we approach. The fact that Peter and the Starcatcher is more of a well-known show, it might carry a little bit more weight to it, but the show itself really isn't a big show. It's a musical play, so it's not a full-blown musical. There's not 18 or 20 singing numbers. There's really only 5 or 6 singing numbers with incidental music played throughout the entire piece. Mm-hmm. And so I'm very excited about that. It's a 12-actor show. Almost every actor plays multiple characters, and there's flexible casting, and so I'm very excited about this. And I'm excited because a school for our size, getting 12 actors, which is a relatively small cast on stage playing multiple roles, I think this is something that fits us very, very well, and fits our audience too.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. Now, The show is detailed, funny, and very touching. What do you think CSU could bring to this unique telling of the prequel to Peter Pan?
This is actually a really great question because what's going to make this production CSU unique is the fact that our costume design is being done by our very own Abby Mappis, and our makeup and hair is being done by Emma Finke, and we have students on the production staff, so helping to make the creative decisions that are going into this. Jeremy Kemmer is our music director for the piece. Jeremy is an alum of CSU, and so it's one of those things that I think we're bringing a lot of unique CSU pieces together to create a very unique CSU production.
Thank you, Joanna. I look forward to seeing this production very soon. In other news, Film Fest has come and gone, but that's not going to stop us from reporting on it. CSU's own Lizzie Walker was on the scene speaking to the founder of Film Fest himself, Jack Coleman. Lizzie?
What inspired the film festival? How did it get started?
I'm glad you asked, Lizzie. 2000, some students arrived who were kind of creative crazies, and they wanted to do everything. They started a publication, and they had a film festival, and all kinds of different things. And the first festival, so it was student-driven, which is always a good thing. And these two guys who knew each other from Florida were here, and they said, hey, let's have a film festival, and they ended up having it at the end of September. So 4 weeks after the school year started, they had the first film festival. And it worked. I mean, they had a handful of films, and there was some good stuff, but it was like, this is too early. And so then after that, we've been doing it every year since. So this is like the 17th film festival.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it seemed like the spring was a better time to do it. Gave people the whole school year. Well, I sort of harkened back to the historical start of this and said, let's do it in the first semester, but at the end of the first semester, so they have a few more weeks. So that was really kind of some students with a great idea.
Yeah. So what is your role in it? Do you have much of a role, or?
Yeah, the years it works best, I have less of a role. The years it's not working so well, I have a big role. Like 1 year, I didn't get any submissions, and it's like, but the show must go on. So we had a throwback festival where we showed the greatest hits from all the previous years, and it ended up being like a 3-hour show, and it was like incredible. It was too long, but it just showed how many good films had been made over the years. So Emulsion is the film club. Probably most students don't even realize that the students have a film club called Emulsion, which is a film term for the halide salt material on the back of film stock that catches the light, and it was the whole idea of salt and light.
Mm-hmm.
So Emulsion Film Club is the name of it, and it still sort of sponsors the events, but when ultimately it gets back to me. So I'm sort of the sponsor of the film festival.
Okay.
And often, though, I end up running it. A couple of years. There have been several years where students have really taken the ball and run with it completely. But I just said if I can't get some student involvement, particularly if you don't get films, then it's like, why bother? But these last several years, we've had more submissions than ever before. I mean, so the amount of creativity on campus right now is astounding.
Yeah.
I can attest to the enjoyment, entertainment factor. It's high.
Cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, thanks for your time.
Sure.
Looking forward to checking it out, seeing what the students have to bring.
Yeah.
You guys put together.
Yeah.
Thank you, Lizzie. Our final story of the night, garnering high ratings and reviews such as, "This book changed my life, I would recommend it to anyone who's going through a tough time," to, "Yeah, I kind of liked it." Pen Without Ink was written by Sarah Phillips. Mrs. Phillips was interviewed earlier this week by CSU's own Heather Sagner.
First of all, could you tell me a little bit about your book, Pen Without Ink?
Pen Without Ink, Trusting God to Write Your Story, is a true story. On April 5th, 2003, our family was part of an accident that was a 23-car pileup. And the injuries that it left us have left scars and limitations. My husband had a traumatic brainstem injury along with an almost severed spleen. I broke my neck and my L1 was shattered. Besides collapsed lungs and broken ribs and all of that. And so we walked away from that. Our lives were changed forever. It was just never the same. And so I wanted to write the story about that. So it is our story, but it's also God's story. Interwoven within the pages are biblical characters, biblical principles that comforted us at the time, but looking back on it, you still have to work through that. It's not like it's ever over. And so it still helps us process what happened even now. And then there's a place that's called Your Story, and it's a place for the reader to consider their life story and what God's doing with them. So it's a very personal book. It's very realistic. I tried to be vulnerable and really tell it how it was, but also with the view to put my arm around someone else and say there's always hope.
Yeah, so what was the most challenging part of writing that story for you?
I think the most challenging part for me was when I first started writing, I wrote this in third person. And I realized that wasn't the way to write this story, but it took me a while to be able to write in first person, to be able to not be academic about it, but to actually put emotion in and let it really mirror what really happened. And that took me a while to be able to come to that point within my own mind and how I viewed the incident, but also to be able to communicate that in a way that would really reach out and connect with the readers.
Okay.
So it took me a while to be able to come up with, to find my voice in that. Grateful for the opportunity.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Heather. That's all the time we have for tonight, folks. Tune in next week to CSU News. Same bat time, same bat channel.